prime Nate Diaz was a problem. Let's break it down. For context, this was a fight between Nate Diaz and Michael Johnson, and for Diaz, he was in a really weird spot in his career because after returning to lightweight, he rounded off 3 straight wins, fought for the title against Benson Henderson, which he lost, then he went 1-2 in his next 3 fights, so he was really in no man's land in terms of where he fit in the division. But everything was about to change after this stellar performance against Michael Johnson, who was ranked number 6 at the time and incredibly dangerous. And if there's one thing you need to know about Johnson, it's that his hand speed is incredibly fast. Early on, you see Nate is fighting cautious. He's keeping the distance because he's the longer fighter, so it's on Johnson to try to close that gap between them. So Nate's comfortable just sitting on the outside, letting Johnson's punches fall short like he does right here. And when Nate starts the pressure, he does so with smart pressure by staying just on the outside of Johnson's range so that when he feints or shows him something, Johnson's punches just fall short, which wastes his energy. Like right here, you see how Nate makes Johnson feel his presence, but he's still easily able to pull his head back out of the way of those punches. Right here, Johnson is able to land a counter 1-2 off of the jab of Diaz and then gets hit with a leg kick right after. Again, Nate just smartly disengaging when Johnson tries to go. And all these feints by Diaz are also messing with the timing of Johnson. Now right here, we're going to see Nate land his signature 1-2, which he lands multiple times in this fight. Here, Nate is going to time Johnson coming in beautifully with the jab. Slow it down right as Johnson plants that front foot and his weight is a little bit forward. That's when Nate decides to throw the jab and it pops Johnson's head back. And after that first jab, Nate is starting to find his range and timing. Off the success of the jab, Nate starts landing his 1-2. On the other side, Johnson is still struggling to find his range. Love Nate as the taller fighter showing the knee as Johnson tries to go the body. And another clean 1-2 by Nate. And now you see Nate is feeling himself a little bit and he throws another one. Again, Nate using these feints to dull the senses and the reactions of Johnson. Remember what I said about the timing on Johnson's footwork right here again as Johnson plants that front foot and his weight is forward. That's when Nate lands this jab. Solid exchange by both guys right here. Nate's going to pop him with the jab. Johnson is again going to come back with that check right hook to left hand. The left hand is actually going to land on Nate. Nate is going to try to throw the check right hook, but Johnson avoids it. Final 10 seconds, Nate is going to land another 1-2, and you see that initial reaction by Johnson to throw that check right hook, but that's a problem because that right hook opens up the lane for Nate's left hand. After Nate lands the 1-2, he's going to point at him. Then he's going to hit him with the Stockton slap, tell him he slapped him. Johnson's going to acknowledge it, try to get his get back, but he misses, and that's where the round ends. Open up round 2, Johnson is going to hit Diaz with a big left hand as Diaz lifts up his leg, and he just eats it. Another stiff low kick by Johnson right here, which is going to knock Diaz off balance. Then right here, Diaz is going to hit Johnson with a clean 1-2. Another stiff jab by Diaz. And now Diaz is pressuring, and now he's switching it up with the right hook first into the left hand as Johnson tries to throw that check right hook again, but that's just opening up that lane. This is something I didn't touch on before, but it's incredibly important. You see how Diaz is going to overcommit on this jab right here, and now Johnson is going to look to counter. The advantage of being a taller fighter like Diaz, he's able to safely pull his head back out of the way, out of range of Johnson's strikes. If they were both the same height, he wouldn't be able to do that as easily, but that's just something you're going to have to deal with when you're the shorter fighter. Another advantage is Diaz is able to hit Johnson where Johnson isn't able to hit him. Now you see Diaz perfectly has his range. He's just flowing, staying outside of Johnson's strikes while hitting him with his own. And now you can tell that Johnson is feeling that pressure and he's starting to break a little bit. And right here, look at how Nate switches up the intensity of his jabs. Sometimes they're slow, sometimes they're fast, sometimes they're power jabs, sometimes they're just touches. This exchange right here is a microcosm of the whole fight. Nate lands the 1-2 as Johnson tries to throw that check right hook, which again, like we said, opens up that lane. Johnson responding with the check right hook followed by the left hook, and the left hook is going to land. He's going to stay in his face and just keep popping in with jabs. A good word by Johnson right here to check the leg kick into the left hand. After that, they're both going to pop each other with jabs. Nate's going to try to throw another one. Johnson is going to counter with that same counter, but Nate is going to pull his head out of the way. And then another jab by Nate off the kick of Johnson. But then Johnson's going to come back, landing the leg kick, then landing the 1-2. Like we just saw earlier, Diaz is going to throw his 1-2. Johnson's going to counter with the right hook to left hook, and the left hook is going to land right on the chin of Diaz. Here, Nate is going to commit to a jab heavy. Johnson is going to try to counter, but Nate is just barely able to get his head out the way. And the thing that makes Nate's 1-2 so dangerous is that 2 comes right after the 1 on a half beat, so you get hit with the jab and you're immediately getting hit with the 2 right after. The whole time, Nate continues to feint, touch, and jab at Johnson to disrupt his timing and rhythm. All of this is overloading the nervous system of Johnson, so he's on his heels, and right there he lands a nice left hand, but Diaz just eats it and then jabs him in the face. And then right here, Nate is going to land another 1-2, pull his head back out of the way, and style on him, shoulder roll, and just keep coming forward. Nate's going to land again, this time with the 3-2, but Johnson's going to counter him with the right hook. And the same sequence is going to happen again. But you can see that Johnson is slowly getting a little bit more tired, and Nate is slowly just chipping away at him. Big 1-2 for Nate right here, and he just smiles and points at him. Then he's going to do it again, point at him again. Then he's going to get a little bit too cocky and get hit with a big left hand. But then Nate locks in and he's right back at it with the 1-2, and once again you see Johnson is looking for that check right hook which opened up that lane. After that, Nate's going to act like he's nonchalant and then hit him again with the 1-2. Nate could not miss on this 1-2. Johnson is going to get tired of it. He's going to punch with Nate on the 1-2 and actually land his left hand. And then he's going to land again with this 1-2. You see Nate's going to try to pull his head back, but this time Johnson is a little bit deeper, footwork-wise, so he's able to land it. Then Johnson's going to keep going and land another left hand. But then after that, it's back to our regularly scheduled programming with Nate just landing the 1-2s again. I need someone to count how many 1-2s Nate actually landed in this fight. It's insane. This is how you really know Nate's flawed. He lands a head kick. But respect to Michael Johnson, because he was still throwing back. He wasn't giving up. Nate's going to land again, this time off the 3-2. After that, what do you know, same sequence all fight. Diaz 1-2, Johnson throwing the check right hook to left hand, and Diaz following it up with the right hook. Final 15 seconds, Diaz throws another 1-2, grabs the tie clinch, starts landing some knees as Johnson pushes him up against the fence. Diaz is going to put him in a front headlock momentarily before punching off the break. Then they're going to finish the round with Diaz throwing another 1-2. They finish throwing and Diaz points at him. Third and final round, Michael Johnson comes out aggressive, but he still can't find the range on Diaz. And the reason Johnson can't find his range is because he's reaching for the punches. He's not using footwork to close the distance first. Really, the only time Johnson was able to land on Diaz was when Diaz decided to sit down and commit to his strikes. Right here, Diaz is going to jump into range and get countered with the hook. And then right here, we see the first 1-2 by Diaz in the third round, and Johnson just tries to open up with strikes, but Diaz smartly just goes high guard, waits for a Johnson to finish, pulls his head back out of the way when he's ready, and then pops him with the jab after. Here's a good left hand by Johnson through the guard of Diaz as Diaz steps into range. And now with the way Nate's body language looks, he has no respect for Johnson anymore. He feels like he can just walk him down confidently. Another massive 1-2 by Nate right here. Right here, Johnson is going to be hesitant and Nate is going to punish him for it. You can see in Nate's face, he knows that he's broken him. They're going to grapple and Nate is immediately going to get that tie clinch and start landing some more knees. Johnson is just looking for some time to rest, but Nate just keeps working and doesn't give him any. It's like uppercut by Nate right here, just switching things up. And Nate's going to throw the body jab and follow it up with another 1-2. Beautiful teep to the body right here by Nate, followed by the jab. And then what do you know, another 1-2. I know this looks like the same clip, but this is a different 1-2. Now Nate is just kind of toying with him, just touching him, getting him to react, touching him with these jabs. Johnson is trying his best to get Nate off of him, but Nate is just going high guard. Big exchange right here with Nate finishing the sequence with, yet again, another 1-2. You can tell that Johnson just has no power left in his punches. And here we see that same sequence we've been seeing all fight. It seemed like Nate just never let Johnson feel comfortable in this fight. He always had him at his range. On all 20 seconds, Nate is able to land one last 1-2, and Johnson is actually able to counter him hard with the right hook. He opens up to set up the takedown, and Diaz is going to go down momentarily, but then eventually he's able to build himself back up to his feet, and then he's going to do a cheeky little trip right here to get Johnson to flip over. He's going to take his foot just for kicks, and this is where the fight ends. And after the fight, we got the legendary post-fight interview where Nate calls out Conor McGregor, and the rest is history.